Yay! The live viewers just got a wonderful taste of live broadcast.
It happens time to time on Ginger Runner Live.
Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 313. You'd think that after 312 episodes, we'd get this. I say we.
I mean, I thought we should have practiced today, but apparently we're all good.
It's all my fault. I looked at the screen and went, oh boy, I had my mic muted and Kim's mic muted. So everyone, welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 313. We're excited about tonight's show because this week and this coming weekend, it was to be Western States 100, but obviously due to the coronavirus, Western States 100 was canceled, and runners who were going to take on the arduous and incredible 100-mile race this weekend, I believe, are going to be doing it next year. Unfortunately, just because of the cancellation this year. But in honor of the race that was to be this weekend, we wanted to talk about it. And our guest tonight, Austin Meyer, is a filmmaker. He's a crew member. He's in the chat from time to time. We just love him. He's a wonderful member of the community. But last year, 2019 in Western States, he made a beautiful film about the best hour in ultra running. It's called The Golden Hour, which is the final hour of the Western States 100. We're going to talk to Austin, the filmmaker, tonight, talk about Western States, his experience there, the runners, all that good stuff. So welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live. We're happy to have you here, especially now that the sound works. Sit back, relax. Ginger Runner Live, episode 313 begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! Just want to make sure.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it. I'm looking to make sure our mic audio is on. It's all good. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 313. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. We are in the week of Western States 100 every year.
Hard to believe
it's hard to believe
this is the week because it feels so different this year.
Yeah. Western States 100, in case you are unfamiliar, is pretty much one of the most known 100-mile races in the world. Also, arguably one of the most competitive. We get to talk about it every year, and we get to make predictions of who's going to win and what are the stories that are going to follow that year. Unfortunately, this year, due to the coronavirus, like many races, Western States 100 was canceled. We still want to honor the race and talk a little bit about it on our show because this is Western States 100 week. We thought this would be the show that we should do that. And we wanted to talk a little bit differently about it because normally we talk about the front of the pack, people who win this race, but there are so many stories at Western States 100. There are 270 stories. There's more than that. I mean, you talk about the volunteers, the aid stations, the race directors, everyone there has a story on how they got there.
So even the neighboring community.
Even the communities.
The kids that come out.
There are thousands of people
cool.
that make this race happen. Thousands. And that's not an over-exaggeration. Our guest tonight, Austin Meyer, is a filmmaker, a fantastic filmmaker. And he, last year, documented the last hour of finishers at Western States 100. They call it the best hour in ultra running. It's also known as the Golden Hour. We've experienced the Golden Hour a number of times as a viewer there at Placer High School, and it is one of the most incredible things to witness. You just see so many stories of triumph and heartbreak because there are people who don't finish within that last hour between 29 and 30 hours of the Western States 100. So our guest tonight, Austin Meyer, made a film called The Golden Hour, best hour in ultra running. We're going to talk to him tonight all about that experience last year, what it was like being at States, what it was like documenting this hour and the runners that were a part of it. Should be a fun show tonight. And before we get into it, of course, we do have some individuals to thank. I'd like to thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's not just myself, it's also Kim.
What's up, everyone? Kim Tashima Newberry here, as always. If you're new to the show, welcome. We are live. We'll be having Austin join us in just a second. But because we are live, you can interact with us. You can interact with our guests. So if you have questions for our guests, please pop them into the chat room. Yep. I'm already seeing we have AJW in the house asking if I was drinking the beer with the cayenne in it. I am indeed drinking the beer with the cayenne in it.
Yeah. We appreciate AJW. He's been a guest on the show in the past. And I would say one of the guys that knows the history of States as well as anybody. AJW has run States multiple times. We've talked with him on the show about it. And honestly, if this was a regular States weekend and it was taking off or was going to happen in just a matter of days, I'm sure we'd try to get AJW on here as well to talk with us in Austin, because AJW would have his predictions. He'd know every inch of this course. So good to see him in the chat. We also like to thank our Patreon crew. Just because of them that we're able to do these live shows every single Monday. We've also been doing daily live shows for the Patreon crew. So all of our Patreon supporters, we appreciate you. If you'd like to join us, you can do so at patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month. You get to participate in some cool after shows that we do here. And for $3 and above, we're doing our daily live stream. So we have 76 episodes of daily live streams.
Many hours.
Many hours of content that you can go and watch and listen to. Just daily fun. We've talked about some crazy shit on those shows. Two individuals in particular at that top tier. Chris Lee out of Hong Kong. Chris has been a longtime supporter of the show. He has an organization called Trailblazer that showcases all the trails in the region. Chris and his family are just fantastic humans. We like to give them a shout out at the top of every show. And Brian Sands. Brian Sands has been a longtime supporter and just incredibly inspiring dude. Ran his first marathon at 50, first 50K. Currently training for some seriously big projects. Seriously huge projects. And he might be in the chat room tonight, but he
is in the chat room.
Good to see Brian in the chat room. But Brian's been a longtime supporter, and we just truly love him. And finally, we promised ourselves that we would not take sponsors for this show, and we have not, unless it was a beer sponsor. And we're really, really happy that tonight's episode is brought to us by Sufferfest Beer. We have been drinking this stuff for years. We know the owners and the founders of the company. They are also athletes and runners. They make delicious beer for athletes. It's basically by athletes for athletes, and we've been drinking it on the show here for a couple of weeks now, and we're really, really happy to say that Sufferfest has been hooking us up and helping these shows happen. We've been having great conversations on Ginger Runner Live over the last few weeks, and again, thank you, Sufferfest, for helping to support those conversations and supporting the podcast. We appreciate it very much. Without further ado, I think it's time to introduce our guest. He's been so patient.
Let's do it.
Coming to us all the way from Northern California, Austin Meyer. Yay! And Austin, hold on. I want to make sure they can hear you.
We're going to make sure that they can hear you.
There we go. Now they can hear you. Yeah. Amazing. I couldn't actually get to
You muted us, right?
I muted us. Now everyone can only hear Austin.
Well, it's so great to be here. It's a little trippy to be on this side of the screen, but I'm so excited. And hello to everybody in the chat room, the GR crew. And you know, it's a little bit of an odd year when the week going into Western States, I'm the guest and not Jim Walmsley or Courtney or AJW. I'm glad that through storytelling that I can add a little bit of that Western States spirit to this year.
And you know, I think that's one of the things that I think we can really dive into on tonight's show and the conversation is just the stories that come from this race. And this is something that you and I can relate to, having told stories now from Western States over the years, and you've seen it play out in real time as well. The stories that go on behind that top 10 women and men that finished that are heartbreaking and triumphant. And there's just so much that every person has gone through to get to that start line. Last year, you were going to talk a bit about this film, The Golden Hour, or just Golden Hour. But before we get to that, I kind of want to learn a little bit about your draw to the race itself. What made you travel there last year, and sort of what drew you to Western States, specifically the Golden Hour?
Great. So I got into the sport of ultra running back in 2016. So I'm pretty new to the sport, and my background as an athlete is as a soccer player. So I played soccer all throughout my life and ended up going to Stanford on a scholarship to play soccer there. And I played all my years there at Stanford on the soccer team and was one of those seniors graduating, crossing my fingers, hoping to hear my name called when it was time for the MLS draft.
Wow.
Waiting there, sitting by the phone, and I always knew it was going to be a long shot. And when I wasn't selected, I decided to pursue some of the storytelling interests I had as a journalism major there, instead of dropping out of school to play second division professional soccer. And then my first job out of school was at the LA Times working as a videographer. And one of my first assignments was to start covering the LA Galaxy, the top professional soccer team in LA. And at first I thought, this is going to be awesome. A dream assignment here. I get to go to the games for free and turn my camera on these incredible athletes. And then I went to the first practice and felt sad. And I realized it was because my identity as an athlete still had this void that was left from leaving soccer. And I wasn't happy turning the camera on, filming these players that I still wished I was. And so that began this journey of me trying to fill that void and kind of find my new identity as an athlete, trying a bunch of different sports. And when I read Born to Run, that was the first time I had heard about ultrarunning. And since then, I've just been learning a lot about the sport. And when Western States came up, that's a race that's pretty much in my backyard. I live in Sonoma County, about 45 minutes away from Lake Sonoma 50. And what interested me about Western States, not just the history of the race itself, but there's a history within that race and a lore within that race that creates moments like Golden Hour that are like in itself a contained moment. And when I look at telling stories about the sport of ultrarunning or telling stories around politics or global health or anything I do as a journalist, really the people and the individuals are what I am attracted to first. It's not really a race. It's not anything like that. And so I knew that I could take a unique angle when it came to telling the story about Western States in a way that I had not seen it told before, other than an I Run Far article by AJW about Golden Hour. And when he described what that hour was like, I was like, I can envision that because I know the feeling I get when I'm at ultra races, and to know that that is out there at Western States and it's probably amplified tenfold, like everything is there. That was not something I could turn down and going to film.
So this was also your first time to Western States, right? So you had heard about it, you'd read about it. How did you learn about the logistics involved in going there and filming? And because there's a lot of elements to just even following people on the course and getting to aid stations and stuff like that. What was that learning process like for you, this being the first time you were there and documenting such an important part of the race?
Yeah, that was a challenge. I think ultrarunning is such a beautiful framework for telling stories, and we can get into that later. But the one thing that is tough about ultrarunning, which you know, is that you have to cover such a huge distance while you're filming.
Right.
And I was really figuring out those logistics on the fly. So I was directing this project, and I had a cameraman alongside me while we were filming named Patrick Pelham. And together we were trying to cover this course. And because we were focused on Golden Hour, we had no idea who was going to finish in Golden Hour.
Right.
And so what I ended up doing was I drove out in my mom's car, slept in her car for 3 nights out at Western States. And the day before the race at the pre-race expo, I stood with a paper sign in the middle of the expo that said, "I'm making a film about Golden Hour. Does anyone want to talk?" And I stood out there for a couple hours with the sign. And over the course of that couple hours, I got about 7 people who bravely said, "Sure, I'll talk to this freckled kid standing with his paper sign." And then what I did was I took down every one of those people who I spoke to, took down every one of their bib numbers, and communicated with their crew that I would like them to take cell phone footage of each of the runners, because I knew that service was going to be a challenge. And so then the next day or two was just consistently me trying to get footage of the front of the pack all the way to the back of the pack, so I can kind of capture the holistic energy of this race.
Yeah.
But also trying to check in on the runners who I interviewed to see, will one of them finish in Golden Hour?
This is that's, to me, one of the biggest challenges with this project. I just as a viewer and as someone, who has tried to document films at States before, 2 in the same year before both Kim and I were there to document both Brian Morrison's return in 2016 and Sage Canaday, his race that year. Just the logistics involved in following 2 people who we knew where they were at all times was incredibly difficult. So to then think about what it's like to follow multiple people who you don't know, you're basically trying to finish within a framework, who's going to finish within this hour. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
How difficult that would have been. Sorry,
yeah, and there's a question from Angela, and you kind of just answered most of it. She did also go on to say, did anyone that you were following finish faster than predicted? So finish outside of the Golden Hour.
Yeah, so I interviewed about 7 or 8 people at the pre-race expo. There were 2 people who finished in golden hour. I think there were 4 who finished before golden hour, and then there were 1 or 2 who dropped out of the race.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine the logistics. We'll talk more about that because I think that's a really interesting part of this film. But before we even get into that side of the conversation, I do want to show a trailer. So this movie, as we start to dig into sort of the how and the who and the what, Austin created this. It's a beautiful film. It's called Golden Hour. It's going to be released this weekend on Sunday at 10 a.m., which is the 10 a.m. Pacific, which is the start of the actual golden hour when it would have taken place this weekend for states. Is that correct, Austin?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it will be on your YouTube channel, which we'll also mention here in the show. But in the meantime, this is the trailer for Golden Hour.
So let's just start by asking the basic question, which is what is golden hour at Western States?
The golden hour is the best hour in ultra running. The Western States 100 has a 30-hour cutoff.
Golden hour is that last hour right before cutoffs where really all the heart and all the desire and determination takes over.
I think the golden hour is really representative of just this mental perseverance of ultra running.
You've been out there as long as you could possibly be out, and you just have to dig deep.
They have just, seconds to get to that finish line, otherwise they don't get their buckle, and seeing them give it their absolute all, that is what this is about.
You don't see anything like that on a movie screen or anywhere else.
It's where the magic happens. It's why Western is what it is. The stories are in the end.
It's an awesome trailer. We had the chance to watch the movie itself.
There's also a few people in chat room who have seen it with the
Trail Running Film Fest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is a fantastic movie. And I think I messaged Austin right after I finished it. One, it's an emotional trip because I didn't realize how much I miss ultra running until watching this. And it's like an immediate just, oh my God, it just takes you right
Those
back.
Feelings.
The feelings that you feel at any ultra, whether you're running it or a spectator. And then you amplify that to 11 because it's the golden hour. So you're seeing these stories where people didn't think they're going to finish. And it's like, it just takes all of it and packages it in a beautiful way that just brings out all the feelings and all the emotions. And just, man, it makes me miss ultra running. It makes me miss it so bad. Not that we can't go out and ultra run right now. Like I could go run 30 miles, but just being at a finish line.
I'll set a timer for you this weekend and you have to.
I got to start 5 a.m. on Saturday and run 100 miles. Okay.
Yeah. I'll film it.
It's a fantastic film, Austin.
Thank you.
Talking a little bit about just going back into those logistics there. So I remember seeing you at the expo with the sign. It's like, hey, I'm making a film about golden hour. Come talk to me. Talk about creativity, because the only way that you can really figure out who's going to be in that last hour is by asking people, do you think you're going to be in that last hour? And sometimes runners are really honest, and sometimes you're like, I don't want to think about being, one of the runners in the last hour. I can't think about that. Yeah. So what was that experience like when you're doing those initial interviews with people and you're standing there with the sign? Are you thinking, I hope these people get to that last hour, or I hope that they're faster, or, as a creator, what is going through your mind in this process?
Well, the sign tactic that was a relatively new way of identifying characters for the story that I work on. Normally, I am in a context where I've arrived at a location. Say, if I'm thinking about like my journalistic background, I have a story theme, and I have a certain population that I'm interested in. For example, right now, I'm living in Sonoma County. Sonoma County is a place where a Latino immigrant population is being hit by coronavirus very hard. So if I'm interested in telling that story, one of the ways I identify characters is I reach out to different organizations that represent immigrant undocumented communities and ask them to point me in the direction of people. And that's kind of how I get my intro. So every story has a different way of identifying characters. Sometimes it's just me going up and asking people, hey, can I chat with you? But in the context of Western states, there's so many people at this expo. I have no idea who's a racer. Everyone's legs look amazing. You know,
Right.
I don't know who to ask. So the sign was the best way that I could think of. And when I spoke to them, each person who, you know, shared their story, I mean, you know how it feels like when someone opens up and just like shares what they're going through. All you want to do as a storyteller is to honor what they say and honor their time and honor their honesty. And so that's what I was hoping to do. And everyone who I interviewed, whether they were expecting to finish in 24 hours or knew that they were going to be right under that 30-hour line, every one of them said, one of the most special parts of our sport is that no matter where you finish, you get that celebration that makes you feel like $1 million. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to Golden Hour as a theme and as a subject is, as I mentioned, I come from soccer background. I would never get the chance to play on the same field as Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi or anything like that. They're in a different stratosphere. And it's so unique in our sport that we can line up on the same starting line with those athletes and then also have them at the finish line going wild for us when we finish in that 29, 30-hour range. So when I was interviewing people, I was just trying to draw out some of their pre-race thoughts, pre-race emotions, and not knowing who was going to end up as kind of the main character of the film, making sure I gave everyone in those initial interviews some equal time to just share their thoughts.
And that's an interesting point because most of the documentaries I make, usually you have your characters beforehand. You know, you're either going to follow this individual or you're going to follow these groups of individuals, and whatever their story is, that's the story you tell. So there's this element of preparedness, but also whatever happens is the story, right? So you go, especially with ultra running, you can't sit there and predict. Thinking of Where Dreams Go to Die, for example, we went down there with Gary thinking, who knows what the hell's going to happen here that first year. You go back the second year and you're like, well, I have confidence he can do it, but the Barkley doesn't give a fuck. Yeah, like you don't know how it's going to happen. So you document what you can in order to tell some story later in the edit room. You don't really go down there with any sort of preconceived notion. And in this case, that's even to an nth degree because the people who you're interviewing the day before, you're like, I don't know if they're going to be in the golden hour. They could have the best days ever. They could be sub 24. They could be, you never know. So that's a whole fantastic element to this film that I don't think a lot of people might realize is just trying to tell the story of an unpredictable hour in time that takes place the next day where the characters within it, you don't know.
Well, one of the things that worked in that sense for the form of the story, and I want to give a shout out to Tara Loveland, who I think is in the chat room. She really became the heart of the story. But interviewing a range of people and using their quotes throughout the film, even though they aren't the heart and they aren't the main character of the story, I thought that was important to the theme of Golden Hour because Golden Hour is special because of this community of the sport.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do is, even if I knew, it's okay if I'm giving it away. Tara, you rock. Tara finished in Golden Hour. even if I knew Tara was going to finish in Golden Hour, I don't think it would be as powerful if I just had her voice because Golden Hour is about everyone coming together and everyone sharing in this moment. And that's why I think having the multiple voices, even for people who dropped out or finished way earlier, really makes it feel like whole.
Without a doubt. And Tara is in the chat room. Tara Loveland, shout out to you, Tara. She's a fantastic character in this movie. I say character, but in film terms, we refer to characters as stars. But Tara is a wonderful athlete. And that interview at the beginning, it's emotional for her, but also as a viewer, you're watching it going because you can see in her face and her emotion the thoughts that go through every ultra runner's emotion when you're towing the line of a 100-miler, and especially something at Western States. It's raw, And I love you as the filmmaker sort of asking the questions, like, why are you getting emotional? And, her sort of saying, because it's Western states and there's this added pressure and that sort of thing. And he goes, where's the pressure coming from? You. This is where's the pressure coming from? And you're like asking her to identify these things. You can kind of see her. It's hard. Like, she knows that it's a difficult race ahead and a difficult journey. It's a beautiful moment in the film. Sorry, I think you had a question pulled aside. I'll let you get to that.
Annie Jones Wilkins in the chat room says, how did you choose to find me at Michigan Bluff, the 55-mile point in the race, to talk about the golden hour? And AJW goes on to say, did you know I would be in my element right there? Is that because of your fancy Stanford degree or just good storytelling instincts?
When are you not in your element? No, so AJW, your article in I Run Far about golden hour was one of the things that I first saw to get interested in that as like the framework for the story. And so I had my eye out for you all weekend, and then I just luckily saw you at Michigan Bluff, and I think we spoke for maybe just 5 minutes. But the quotes you gave were incredible and added a lot to the film. So thank you so much.
If I'm remembering correctly, the article, I think in question, it's on I Run Far, but I do believe it references the golden hour with Gunhild. If that is the one that I'm thinking of, because that was one that we witnessed, that golden hour with Gunhild Swanson, who finished with seconds to spare, and she's just a fantastic ultra runner and kind of one of those inspiring people that you see out there just crushing it. Gunhild runs some of the biggest, hardest races out there. She lives here in Washington State. She's just a total badass.
Any race that I've ever run that she's run in, she's definitely passed me.
Yeah. Gunhild's one of the runners where she's been doing this for a while, and if you get passed by her,
I would say she's my favorite person to pass me.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Gunhild's going. Yeah, go Gunhild. But if you can keep up with her, you know that she knows exactly how to get the races done, right? I just want to commend you on this project. What are the things that you learned as a result of this? Because it obviously probably required a ton of footage and a ton of research, and also kind of a lot of logistics on the back end, trying to edit it together and tell that story cohesively. What are some of the things that you pulled from this project, things that you will take away and maybe use in your next project?
Yeah, great. So I think I've always been really interested in ways that I can use different types of footage to tell a story. And what I mean by that is, you have, as a documentarian, the footage that I'm most comfortable creating and using is the footage that I myself go out and get. So I have my camera I'm comfortable with. It has a certain texture, a certain kind of quality. But as a third person point of view coming in to tell someone's story, I can only access so much, especially in a story like this, where I didn't know Tara before I showed up to Western States. I didn't know a lot of the people who are in this film. I didn't know AJW before I spoke to him. So even if they are open and we create some sort of rapport between the storyteller and the subjects, there's still going to be some distance there. So I've always been interested in, how can I empower others to use first-person point of view, first-person perspective, getting people who are close friends of the main character to take footage, because it gives you, as the filmmaker, these different points of access, different points of intimacy that can shed a new light on the character. And so for this film, what I ended up doing was pretty much getting cell phone footage from all these different crews of all the different people who I followed. And at first I was thinking, like, I don't know, is it going to feel a little bit tacky to have like my footage with the Sony A7S Mark II, which is kind of has that nice bokeh in the background, and then contrast that with the cell phone footage.
Right.
And when I put those things together, I actually like that kind of textural change. And there's this one scene, the first scene, where you are with Tara, and I believe she's at the Duncan Canyon aid station, and it's the first time you see her on the course. And the person who is filming her on the cell phone with as a crew member is like right up in her grill. I mean, she is like, looks like she's like changing water bottles, and it makes you feel as an audience that you are part of this crew. And so what I lost in terms of a little bit of image quality, I gained in the access that I may not have been able to get as somebody who wasn't close to them. So that's definitely one of the big learnings that I'm going to be taking away from this.
I'm totally relating to this because it's been hard when you have film equipment, you go to a location to film something, you have kind of a standard that you have in your mind of like, I want the footage to be shot, for example, 4K, and I want the color to look like this and the sharpness to be like this. Like there's certain details that you're so picky and nuanced about when you're filming something yourself, when you're the one holding the camera, especially in a documentary scenario like this, where you're in the wilds of California, back in the backcountry. So any footage you get is like, you got to get it right the first time, right? There's no, hey, can you go back to the beginning of the aid station and run through again so I can get that shot? Like none of that. So I'm also with you. And it's amazing how I think it just took like incorporating cell phone footage, or it was actually during Brian Morrison's project where you shot some stuff on a tiny little, I don't remember what it was. A shitty camera.
What it was.
Totally garbage. It was basically one of those that I had to run off and go film Sage. And
I was with Brian's wife and his crew.
Yeah. I was just like, here, take this little camera and film what you can. And I was like, oh, this is going to look terrible. But you would never know. Like it's actually part of the storytelling process of having great footage shot on a great camera with a great lens, and then, a cell phone thing. And I'll again commend you on this, is that it feels seamless. It feels seamless when you're talking about that reference of following Tara at the beginning there in that first aid station in Duncan Canyon. I was like, how the hell did Austin get to Duncan Canyon and also Robinson Flat? Like, how did he get to both those aid stations? So well done. Well done you. Hiding all that and sort of keeping that story moving forward.
Thank you.
What are your takeaways from Western States? So that being your first Western States experience, going to these remote aid stations and seeing these runners come through. And when I saw you, I believe it wasn't at Robinson Flat. Was it at Michigan Bluff? Michigan Bluff. You must have been there for hours, and you're documenting the lead, but you're also documenting sort of back of the packers and stuff. What was the day like for you?
Western States is so fun. It was just such a delight to be there. That was definitely, I haven't been to UTMB or something like the biggest ones. I think the biggest event I've probably been to is either Lake Sonoma 50 or North Face 50. But Western States just has its really own special tenor. And from the group runs with crews and everyone the night before that all these different brands set up, to the race expo, to actually that start line where you have, just lines of people and crowds wishing everyone the best on their journey as they climb up the escarpment. It's just a really special race. And I also love how, and I think this is probably a product of the history of the race and how long it's been running there, how these small little towns are integrated into the character of the race that you run through. And I think there's definitely a story to be told there about, what's this little town population like 30? What is this weekend like for them? What about this person whose house is just on the Western States course? So I think there's stories there leading all the way up to Golden Hour, which again, one of the reasons why it's such a special moment is because it happens at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Sunday brunch time, and you have that whole town around the Placer High School track come out and are lining the track, cheering people on, and it makes it feel like this niche sport. It makes it feel just so special and so much bigger than sometimes it can when we're alone on the trails.
There's a great question in here from Randy, who are the cell phone videographers, since we were sort of referencing them? And Tara comes back and says, my crew took amazing footage. Falana White, Iris Moya, Brian Loveland, Kelly Swanson, and Krista Keeler. I got through Western States because of them. So shout out to the whole crew, because we all know that crews are a huge reason that we're able to get through big events like that. I'll ask one more question. I know you have a question pulled aside there, but I wanted to ask this one just in regards to Golden Hour itself. So you've read about it. You're lugging your camera equipment out there. You're documenting the whole day. You've been probably awake for more than 24 hours overnight, documenting people at various aid stations, sleeping in a car if you get a chance. you show up to Golden Hour. You've never seen it before, but here you are trying to document it. Were you able to experience Golden Hour for what it was, with the camera in hand? Like, what was the moment like? What was that hour like for you as a filmmaker and as Austin Meyer?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, because as a filmmaker, you do have some sort of distance. You are not experiencing it as you would if you were just a normal spectator. And in some ways, that makes you have more distance from the subject material, and in some ways, it makes you have less distance. In terms of less distance, it meant I was on the track running with all these people for an hour as they were making their final turns. But then the distance came from me thinking, do I have the shot right? Is my exposure right? How am I holding my gimbal correctly so that I'm going to get the smoothest shot? So I don't feel like I was fully immersed in the moment of Golden Hour like some people in the crowd were. But I got to live that moment for many, 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 many hours on end in the edit. And the entire time that I was filming people going around the track, I was also thinking about that edit, kind of editing in my head as I'm filming. So when we were at the track for Golden Hour, because I knew this was going to be the key scene in the movie, we had, I think, at least 3 cameras running for the entire hour. So I had my camera that I was running on the track with a gimbal. We had my other cinematographer, Patrick Pelham, put one on a tripod at the finish line, just set still. We had a GoPro running time lapse for the entire hour. And I think he was also on another one. So we were covering it from a bunch of different angles. And at the whole time, I'm thinking, I hope Tara shows up. I hope someone else from that I'm following shows up. I hope we get a gunned Hilda moment, someone finishing in the last minute. And the not knowing that someone like Tara is going to show up leads to one of my favorite moments of the film when she does, because you can actually hear my excitement realizing that's her. That's the person I interviewed at the beginning of the race. And so I did get to enjoy that moment, but it was different than if I were just there as a spectator.
I think it's also an interesting filmmaker's choice, including your own voice, which is a decision that I made with Where Dreams Go to Die too. When you're editing a movie and you decide to put your own voice in there, it's a purposeful step. But in this case, it works so well because, you know, as your interviewer, you're asking the questions, and I heard your voice saying the questions I had in my head, especially with the Tara interview early on in the film. And at the end, when you see her, you hear your voice like, Tara, you know, you hear your excitement, and she's like pointing at you. It's a cool moment. And it's a really great creative choice. There is a question here for Austin. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, a question from Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, Austin, you've documented life around the globe from the USA to India, Nepal, and Zambia. Did you see similarities in the struggles of the interview subjects in this project compared to past ones?
Not a lot of similarities, mostly because this was really my first foray into like a serious film about running. A lot of the films that I've made in the past are about international human rights development and health. So like in Zambia, I was doing a film on maternal health care where I followed a woman as she was getting ready to deliver her child for 3 months in rural Zambia. In India and Nepal, it was malnutrition, it was human trafficking. And so a lot of those are, just by the nature of the subject, a lot different material to interview. And one of the big differences there is I'm working with translators as well. However, there's one that does come to mind as a similarity, and that was a couple years ago. I was filming a story in the world's largest Syrian refugee camp, which is in northern Jordan. It's a camp called Zatari Refugee Camp, where there's about 80,000 Syrians from a place called Dara in southern Syria. Most of them have been living there for 7 years in this camp. And I did a story about a soccer program in this refugee camp and how soccer allows children in this camp an outlet just to be kids and have fun. And that, I see the connection there because I love telling stories about sports and using sports as the backdrop to explore something fundamentally human. It is kind of the stage where this human drama plays out. And that's why I think ultrarunning is a great subject matter for stories, is because we all see how perfect of a metaphor it is for life. And when I was able to do that story in Jordan, I used sports, in that case soccer, as an access point to explore so many of the similarities that we have as humans with that just joy of play.
You are a fantastic storyteller, Austin. And where can people find more of your work? Because I know that people are going to be really interested to not only watch Golden Hour, but they're going to want to watch these other projects that you were just speaking of. Where can people find this stuff?
So the best place to see those films that I just referenced are on my website, which is austinmeyerfilms.com. That will have kind of most of these films are published with different outlets, so I kind of put them all together on my website there. That's the best place to see those.
Great.
And then social media wise, I'm most active on Instagram, which is Austin Meyer Films.
I also want to, of course, talk about sort of what's next creatively for you, because you've been working on this project for a long time now. You premiered at the virtual Trail Running Film Festival, and it will premiere this weekend on Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But during this time, if you've been working on other projects, I know that obviously being in lockdown and quarantine and everything like that, as a filmmaker, you want to document things, but there's been limitations. Are you working on a project currently? You referenced them earlier.
Yeah. So I'm working on a couple right now. The one that I was up at 5:30 this morning working on was actually back with this Syrian refugee camp that I've been in the last couple of years. And that project is about a photography program in the camp, because I realized right now, while I'm on lockdown, I can't really go do these visual stories as much as I'd like to. I was hoping to be in that camp again this summer. Yeah. And so because I can't do it, I thought, well, when I was there last time, I heard about this photography program. What if I could do Zoom interviews with children in this program, and then I could have them document their own lives in quarantine and what that looks like using cell phones and cameras that they get for this photography program. So that is kind of like the nature of documentary work, is just being able to adapt and stay on your toes and adapt to those changing situations, because right now this is never a situation that we could have imagined. So that's one that I'm excited that I'm working on. That's really cool. I love using technology to our advantage right now in a way to tell new and innovative stories. It's requiring a new level of creativity as a creator to go like, well, how can I make what we have work? And I love that. I love hearing that that's going to help shape some of your future projects that you're in the midst of right now. We really appreciate you joining us on the show tonight, Austin. We appreciate having you on the show. You obviously are very talented. We're really excited to see how well this movie does this weekend. And you also have a movie coming out this weekend, right? Yeah. Okay, let's not just slide straight over that. You got one of my inspirations here, everybody, who's coming out with one of his. I haven't promoted it. The show is not about this. The show is about yours. Yeah, something will be dropping this weekend, but it'll be a surprise, and it will be before yours comes out. So yours it'll be glorious, and we'll be promoting it this weekend for sure, because it's a beautiful, beautiful film, telling some just fantastic stories of triumph. So we really, really appreciate you, my friend. If anyone has any last minute questions for Austin, feel free to jump into the chat room here. But we are going to have an after show with Austin as well for our Patreon crew. So we'll be able to answer a couple additional questions in the after show. But Austin, any ultras coming up? Or are you still running? Are you still getting in the long distance stuff? Yeah, so I'm running. I don't have any races on the calendar, but in late September, the plan is to go with my friend Casey Colby and try to run the John Muir Trail in 1 week. Cool. So that's 220 miles, right? Yeah, about that. So that's got me with butterflies and intimidated right now, but I'm excited for that. That's a dream, man. That trail just looks
Next level. Looks incredible.
So
You gonna
if there's anyone that's done that or has experience like doing those kind of backcountry stage kind of events and efforts, please reach out because I am over my head.
I'm assuming you'll document it to some degree?
Possibly.
Or are you going to leave the cameras at home?
I probably will bring a GoPro, but I'll probably going to try to just keep it as light as possible.
Yeah. Regardless, we got to get you on the show after you do that because that's one of those adventures that I think so many people want to do and take on, but it just looks incredible. You starting in Yosemite or you ending in Yosemite?
We're going northbound, so we're starting near Whitney.
Whitney. Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, this is your first time on the show, Austin, and one thing that we like to do on the show is a little segment we call the Quickie Question Quiz, and it's quite simple.
We haven't pulled this one out in a while.
No, it's been a while since we pulled this one out.
All right.
Basically, here's how it works. It's a rapid-fire series of questions. You just got to answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. When you're ready, give me some thumbs up, and we'll just rock on in.
Some thumbs up.
Some thumbs up. What was your very first race?
My first race was Capitol Reef 50 mile. In Utah.
Favorite place to run currently?
Annandale State Park in Santa Rosa, California.
Road or trails?
Trails.
Bucket list race?
Western States.
This question you can answer with, I want to say Golden Hour, but what's your favorite running movie?
Amongst the Evergreens.
Oh, thank you.
I haven't heard of that one.
I'm not just saying that.
I was going to say, you don't have to just say it because you're on the show, but I do appreciate that.
That was very influential for me as both a storyteller and an ultra runner. So thank you.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
American Idol.
Oh, yeah. That's how we met.
That is how we met.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole different story. We'll save that for Daily Brew.
It's on a Daily Brew.
Yeah.
You have to watch 72 hours to find it.
Favorite pre-race meal?
Like a vegan Buddha bowl.
Good choice. Favorite post-race meal?
Vegan ice cream.
And your current running shoes? What are you running in?
Solomon Sense Ride 3.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, those are right. They're sitting on the floor right over there. I ran on those the other day. Good choice. And congratulations, Austin. You passed the Quickie Question Quiz. You did it.
Thank you.
Our guest tonight has been Austin Meyer, fantastic filmmaker who documented the golden hour from the 2019 Western States 100. We highly encourage you to check out his film when it drops this weekend, Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on his YouTube channel. Austin Meyer Films.
Austin Meyer Films.
Yeah, just YouTube it. The link is the link a premiere link at this point? So can I put it in the description of this video and it will just basically count down?
I think actually not yet. I think it's an unlisted link right now.
Okay, I won't post anything until you tell me to post it in the description. But regardless, just search for Austin Meyer Films in the description on YouTube, and it will take you straight to his channel, and you can watch that on Sunday morning at 10. I can't wait. Let's get it to 1 million views. Thank you, Austin, so much. Or you can go to austinmeyerfilms.com for more info.
Yes.
Our guest tonight, Austin Meyer, fantastic filmmaker. Can't wait for everyone to see the movie this weekend. We are nearing the end of Ginger Runner Live, episode 313. We're going to move into our after show with Austin. If you'd like to join us in our after show, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month, which is a fraction of a cup of coffee, but it literally helps us do everything here. It is pretty much our heart and soul is Patreon. So we appreciate all of our wonderful supporters there. But before we end our show, we do have a segment that we like to call our GR Crew Member of the Week. Did you pull a GR Crew Member of the Week?
Of course I did.
I literally just put you on the spot without nodding and checking beforehand. But Kim, who is our GR Crew Member of the Week?
This week's GR Crew Member of the Week is Dallas Croche. I don't know if I'm saying your last name correctly, Dallas, but Dallas wrote in and said, for my 40th birthday challenge, I ran the Ruby Crest Trail in Nevada, 36 miles with 8,500 feet of elevation gain. I could not have completed this without my amazing wife who ran it with me. Her name is Mandy. This was my first ultra distance and an adventure I will never forget.
Awesome.
So congratulations and also happy 40th birthday,
Yeah,
Dallas.
happy 40th too. Awesome story, and thank you for being our GR Crew Member of the Week. We just like to recognize awesome people, and you, my friend, are awesome.
And if you're in the Patreon Facebook page, Facebook group, Dallas and Mandy both posted a bunch of photos in there as well.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
I saw those photos today. They're awesome. What a cool route.
Yeah.
It looks super big. Big monstrous route. I mean, huge mountains, like ridge lines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Shout
cool.
out. Way to be our GR crew member of the week. We appreciate you. And finally, one last plug for GRGR, which is the Ginger Runner Global Run. This will mark our 5th anniversary edition. So on July 6th through the 12th, we'll be doing 7 days of virtual challenges, running challenges, creative challenges, stuff like that. They'll all be surprise challenges each day. And you can go register at rungrgr.com. There are art pack registrations still available. And basically, every registration goes to support artists. We have a number of photographers and a painter who are involved in this project who have lost pretty much all their income due to COVID-19. So a percentage of every single registration goes directly to them. In addition, we have these incredible postcards that the artists help us create, and every entry of the art pack will get a package of those postcards. There's 12 postcards. So they're super, super good. So please go sign up at rungrgr.com. Join us on July 6th through 12th. And that's pretty much it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to Ginger Runner Live, episode 313. We're moving into the after show. Otherwise, we'll see you next Monday for episode 314. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.